Now it's time for Hot Picks, and our guest has MongoDB as his top idea. He says the company is set to benefit from growing use of generative AI. He says as companies build and launch more of these applications, they will rely more on Mongo's databases. We're joined by Tyler Radke, Senior Equity Research Analyst at Citi. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. Tyler, can you remind us, what does MongoDB actually do and how does it fit into the AI business?
Yeah, so MongoDB is a provider of databases. Databases are essentially the foundation for building applications. So everything from a traditional SaaS application like a Salesforce.com to a mobile application to something that might be customer facing or back office facing, all of those need things like a database to store, manage, and run that data. This is a very large market today, over $100 billion. Obviously, you have companies like Oracle dominating the space. But I think what's really interesting about Mongo is one of the big breakthroughs that we've seen on the AI side is just how easy it is to write code, right? You've seen many of these code completion, vibe coding startups really drive explosive growth, and the output per developer is increased in terms of orders of magnitude. So what does that mean? It means that more lines of code are being generated. You need more databases to store and manage this data. And I think the pace in which you're modernizing legacy applications, so there are applications that were written 20, 30 years ago, that's becoming a little bit easier and happening a little bit faster. And so we think that can be an accelerant to growth. They reported earnings earlier this week. We saw their Atlas cloud revenue accelerate to 30% plus. They have a new CEO who's bringing in, I think, a lot of Fortune 500 relationships. So we think there's a lot of positive tailwinds ahead for the business.
Snowflake is seen as another winner in AI. Remind us what they do and what is their AI angle, please, Tyler.
Yeah, sure. So similar to MongoDB, they are in the database space. They specialize more in data for analytics and for doing business intelligence and those types of use cases as opposed to databases. So these are sort of two distinct markets. Been a very high growth business since its IPO. They did report last night, kind of missed expectations after the bar was pretty high. As you can see, the stock has had a good run this year. But their secret sauce on AI is basically, I think they've done one of the best jobs of actually embedding AI capabilities into their products. So what does that mean? Typically, Snowflake, if you looked at this product in the past, you would have to be an expert in writing SQL queries. You would have to know how to code and be more of a technical user of the product. Today, you can use their Snowflake Intelligence product very much like you and I would interact with a natural language search, ChatGPT. You can ask questions about the data that sits under Snowflake. And so basically this is opening up a wider range of users that can engage with the product, and they make money based off the number of queries you have. So we're really seeing the growth rates accelerate. I think this quarter was a little bit of a blip, but we expect them to return to growing their revenue over 30% next quarter.
That's interesting. So you get billed on the number of queries your employees put through?
Exactly. And it's similar for Mongo. And I think the reason why these are some of our top picks, right, is that in software, the software sector has been under a lot of pressure. And I think there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of the way that software applications are going to look long term, right? Because many of these traditional software businesses, whether it's Salesforce or Workday, et cetera, they charge based on the number of seats, the number of users, right? And so clearly there's a lot of uncertainty. What is white collar jobs going to look like? What is knowledge workers, developer headcount going to look like? But we do know data volumes are increasing. We think the number of queries are going to grow. So structurally, I think these business models and their technology is just kind of better positioned for what's coming.
And finally, what many people would think is an old reliable in software, Microsoft. What is particularly catching your eye about this name right now, Tyler?
Yeah, look, I think Microsoft is in our view, this should be a core mega cap holding, right? It's sort of been our view for the last 5 years, and I think it's generated amazing returns. Clearly, the stock is pulled back a good amount from its highs. I think anytime you do get these pullbacks, they're great times to add. I'd say specifically on the business, what gives us conviction. If you look at last quarter, well, yeah, maybe you could say the Azure growth was a little bit underwhelming. We were really impressed by the bookings that you saw. So the commercial bookings meaningfully accelerated. So they're signing a lot of these large deals. Some of those are with OpenAI and everything, but a lot of this is coming from their large corporate clients. And so we think as they get new capacity on, these PowerShells stood up, you're going to see their Azure revenue growth accelerate. We think this company can grow earnings per share well over 20% over the coming years. They're well positioned on AI and doing everything right in terms of operating with discipline. They're holding operating margins. They're not going into kind of more speculative businesses, and we just think that can kind of drive compounding growth over time.
Tyler, we better leave it there. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Tyler Radke, Senior Equity Research Analyst at Citi.